This is Conversations with Paycheck and Red, a weekly podcast with two good old boys talking about anything and everything that crosses their mind. You may not know what you're going to get with an episode of Paycheck and Red, but you sure know you don't want to miss it. So do what you got to do. Download the app, find the episodes online, and make sure that you don't miss 1 second of Conversations with Paycheck and Red.
What's up, motherfuckers? Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Paycheck and Red. This is your boy Paycheck, and that's Red.
What's up, party people? Tonight's episode is, does size really matter?
Does size really matter?
Yes.
Somewhere in the infancy of puberty, size of a man's, we'll call it unit, becomes relevant. It's joked about. It's used as malicious ammunition during a junior high school relationship fight. Some are even praised. But does size really matter? Red, what do you think?
In my case, nah, it don't matter. Nah, it don't matter. It don't matter not one bit.
Well, if as far back as you can remember, I'm assuming it would be somewhere in junior high, because I believe junior high is when everybody really finds their little pecker, starts poking at it and shit. So there has to be a moment in a guy's life where he sees another man's little penis. Because I would think that's where the whole size thing comes into play for a guy. Wouldn't you think that a guy would, if he saw, now for me it happened in junior high, taking showers. I happened to go to a school that it was mandatory to take showers after gym class. And it was kind of like a prison setting. Everybody was in one big room, everybody ass out.
Yeah.
But I distinctly remember that was my first comparison, as far as am I average, am I little, am I above average? What about you? You got a story?
Well, it didn't happen in a gym.
Yes, it was band camp. Was it band camp?
No, it wasn't band camp. It did happen in junior high, but it didn't happen in the gym locker room. It did happen in the gym, though. After gym class one day, we were waiting on the bell to ring, 5-10 minutes for the bell to ring. We were standing at the double doors there waiting for the bell to ring, and I was standing there hanging out with one of my buddies, talking, shooting shit. And one of our other buddies, we're standing around a bunch of girls and shit now, waiting for the bell to ring. And one of my other friends comes behind my boy I was standing with and pantses his ass, right? I'm talking not just, I think he meant to grab like just his jogging pants, you know what I mean? But he grabbed boxers and all.
Yeah.
And my man was hung like a Clydesdale, for real. Like, I think this was 8th grade, maybe 7th grade. My man was hung like a Clydesdale. And I was like, I done one of those Craig and
double.
Damn! you know what I mean? So, I think that was probably the first time I've ever compared my shit to somebody else's. So, 7th, 8th grade, I think. I can't remember exactly what grade that was, but it was in middle school. I know that for sure. It was 7th or 8th grade. And ever since then, that seed was planted to how I size up to everybody else I'm walking around. Now, I don't walk around looking at dudes' packages thinking, is that dude bigger than me? I wonder if I'm bigger than him. That shit, I don't ever do that. But that's when the seed was planted, like you're talking about, as to when we start comparing and worrying about if size really does matter. So yeah, that's my little anecdote story. Just thankful that it didn't happen to me, because I probably would have got the same reaction, but it would have been laughing and poking and making fun, because on a good day, I can barely get it past my zipper. So,
Well, I think in junior high, you do a lot of fluffing, throughout the day anyway. So you know, and at that age, you just the wind just blows across your pants, and you get you a little semi.
Yeah, the girlfriend I had in 8th grade bought me a pair of silk boxers one time for Valentine's Day. And we know what silk boxers does, fellas. I had a hard time walking down the halls. Had a hard time standing in the lunch line. Had a hard time sitting in class too. That shit was pretty damn embarrassing. Walking around with a semi chub half the day. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, let me ask you this: as a heterosexual male, how many penises do you think you've seen?
Are we talking about in porn too, or what?
Wait. No, I'm talking about live.
Live penises.
Is your dad a given?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, he counts. Yeah. I say that only because I never took showers with my dad or any crazy bullshit like that, but whenever my dad was sick, right before he went into the hospital, I had to help bathe him and all that. So,
yeah.
That was
Oh, so wait a minute. So you didn't see him as a child?
No, I did not. No. Not that I can recall, man. I mean, I'm trying to be honest, but I cannot recall a time in my childhood where I seen my dad's twigs and berries.
Did when you did see his, did it look like yours? I mean, could you tell y'all were related?
Yeah. I'm definitely my father's son for sure.
Any genetic moles or birthmarks or anything like that?
No. The only difference is I manscaped, he didn't.
Yeah. Oh Lord. Yeah.
But, you know what I'm saying? So, it was just something, something I had to do, and I was 35, 6. Something like that before I ever did. But I mean, in total, I'm trying to think, man, including the one in junior high. Then you say your dad's a given, so that's 2.
Yeah. Now for the record, I don't expect you to know this number off the top of your head, but I just assume.
I'm just trying to walk through my life real quick and see how many I saw.
Were you ever in the Boy Scouts? Did you ever go camping and you had that weird little friend or whatever?
I was in the Boy Scouts, but I never seen any or had any weird experiences in Boy Scouts. I don't want to give the Boy Scouts a bad name because they were good to me. But
I was in Boy Scouts also. Troop 369, what up, 369? Represent.
Yeah. I'm gonna roughly say 3, 4, 5, maybe. I'm gonna say 5. Worst case scenario.
Dude, that is so gay. That is so good.
I know, right? I was thinking, I was trying to put it somewhere between 5 and 10 was gay. 1 and 5 was, mediocre, average, heterosexual penis.
We're gonna have to look at the chart. We're gonna have to look at the charts next time I see you in what, June?
Yeah, June. Yeah.
Well, since we're talking about does size matter, let's talk about.
Wait a minute now. Wait. This ain't interview Red about penises episode.
Yeah.
How many have you think you've ever seen in your life?
Live and direct?
Live in the flesh. Yeah.
Live and direct.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Dad's is a given.
But you got brothers though, right?
Yeah, but boys, and the reason I'm saying this is because I have all daughters, but boys don't grow up like my daughters do. Like my daughters, they go to the bathroom together, one to be taking a shit while the other one's in the shower. We didn't do that. Brothers didn't do that. You know what I mean? So I don't think I've ever seen any of my brothers, other than maybe when we were kids and we were peeing out in the yard, but not that I can recall. But I did do some time, so I've seen a few in there, in the shower.
That's so gay. You probably seen like hundreds, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you're gayer than me then.
Yeah, but listen, but when you're in prison, all those penises, I think they get looped into just one big penis.
So you're talking about like a giant penis, like all the flesh of all the penises in jail. It makes up one huge, giant, fleshy, warm penis.
Well, I think that once you use the word plethora,
yeah,
you know, it's that whole thing. Seen one, you seen them all. You know what I mean?
yeah. So seeing a cack ain't no big deal to you, then, right?
No, so I'm going to use I'm going to use prison as one penis.
All right.
So my dad, and the only reason it was my dad is because back in the day, you know, I'm in my early 40s, but back in the, you know, early 80s or whatever, a lot of men, a lot of dads walked around in those robes. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And every now and then, what I think will slide on out.
Yeah. Peekaboo.
Yeah. So it was my dad, prison. When I was in junior high, I told you about the, you know, it was mandatory to take showers. So that's 3. I did accidentally, and it's so weird how it happens when you go to a public restroom, standing at a urinal. I grew up on. Yeah, so
you're not a looker. You're not a looker, are you?
Wait.
Are you a looker?
No, listen. So what happens is because of the lifestyle that I lived, it was all self-inflicted. I had a great home life or whatever, but I ran the streets a lot and I did time, you know what I mean? So individual security was important to me. So I'm always aware of my surroundings. I always look over my shoulders. So I was standing at a urinal at a rest area, and there was 2 guys, one to the left of me, one to the right of me. It was packed for some reason. Yeah. But as I went to go look over my shoulder, you know what I mean? Because there's people walking in and people walking out. So as I turned,
I know where this is going.
Yeah. So as I turned to look over my shoulder, I just happened to see this dude's man meat all hanging out. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, well.
And here I'm looking for. Did you look down at it as you were turning around, or did you like catch it in your peripheral?
Well, let's just say this way. No, if you're filming somebody, and your eyes are directed on, let's say it's a news reporter and the news is on. So you're looking at the news reporter, but as you're looking at the news reporter, I can see somebody throwing a football in the background. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not really paying attention to the dudes throwing football in the background. I'm looking at the news reporter, but I just happen to see those 2 motherfuckers in the back throwing the football.
So that would be in your peripheral, then.
Well, no, it was more as my eyes were panning. It happened to catch it.
Okay. All right.
And immediately my head said, "Oh, penis! Hey, look at there!" Hey.
Oh God, I'm about to choke.
We're supposed to be looking for predators, and we see penis instead.
Right. Yeah. I hear that.
Well, since this is about size matters, or you know, if it does or does not.
Right.
What kind of measuring scale are we working on here? I mean, what's an average? You know, what have you ever measured?
Yeah, a couple times.
Now, when you measure
in my younger days.
Now there's protocol, there's procedures that you have to follow while doing this. It's kind of like in the beard community. Mm-hmm. You can't just go all willy nilly with the tape measure. And
you can't fudge. You can't fudge.
Huh?
You can't fudge on the numbers.
Well, let's talk about the measuring apparatus first. I mean, what would be more convenient? What do they call it? Like altering tape? Like it'd be a tape measure, but it's you know, it's not hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Taylor's.
Tailors, that's the word I was looking for.
Or a seamstress, rather. Yeah, seamstress tailor. Yeah.
So, what was the apparatus?
Me personally, I used a wood school ruler.
Yeah,
I'm talking
back in the day.
Back in the day with the little metal edge on it. You used to rub them on your shoe and burn people's neck with them. But nah, I used a wood school ruler. This was probably the first time, maybe 8th grade, summer into 9th grade, and then probably halfway through high school, and then maybe my early 20s.
Well, listen,
I did 2 or 3 times.
Well, I did some research, And according to my research, it suggests that upon measuring, you must measure flaccid and erect.
Yep.
Okay, so let's hear the numbers. Let's hear them.
I'm gonna put all the numbers together and give you an average. How about that? Flaccid, we're probably, I think best I recall. I'm going to give you my early 20 number anyway, so that's probably the last time it happened. 4.5.
No, dude, no way, not flaccid. You're talking about
like 4. It's like 3.5, 4.
No.
I think like 4.5 might be, yeah.
No, you're talking maybe 2 or 3.
No.
Dude.
2.5 to 3. Swear to God, dude. You asked me, I'm telling you. I'm trying to be truthful here.
When flaccid, it should look like a damn little turtle head.
Now it wasn't fucking -5 degrees outside. I lived in South Carolina. It's talking about when heat hot. When your nutsack sticks to your leg hot. You know what I'm talking about. Dude.
So 4, okay, so that means that
4 might be stretching. I'm thinking probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2.5, 3.
Yeah, that sounds. Listen, if you're 4,
hold on a minute. Let me get my tape measure out so I can tell you the truth.
But
yeah. Hold on. Yeah, 4 is probably exaggerating. You're probably
because
2.5, 3.
Yeah, because if it was 4 flaccid, that would put you well over the average erect.
Which is?
Well, the research that I did says that 6 inches is average. The average man, statistically, is 6 inches erect.
Huh. That's impressive.
Anything over 6 inches is big. Anything under 6 inches is in the small category. Erect, that is.
So what's the stats on Paycheck there? Since you ribbing me for information tonight,
I'm a strong 7.
Flaccid? Come on.
No. Listen, but funny thing is flaccid. Dude, there's been times where I've had to pull the head of my cock out. You know what I mean? Like that dude was in there.
Yeah.
And
like
funny thing,
like a grub worm wearing a turtleneck.
Yeah, and I'm gonna make this real and raw as fuck right now. Back in the day when I partied and I went through my little cocaine days, dude, cocaine would do that to me every time. It would be uncomfortable at times.
Uh-huh.
How flaccid it was, you know what I mean? I'm like, hello, are we there? You know, can you move?
Yeah.
Do you need some mouth to head resuscitation?
Hell yeah.
Sorry for the awkward pause. There's a damn safety meeting going on over here.
Yeah. My safety meeting just dispersed. Everybody's gone to work now. So what you're saying is you're above average?
Statistically, I am. And you know, before all this technology came out, internet, porn, you know, you can find anything on the internet. You can look at penises all day long. But I remember, as I was growing up, you know, I went through the puberty deal, and I was very promiscuous. And I'll tell you this, and this is being as humble as I can be. It hurts a lot for the woman. Like I can't beat it up. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
You know, so that without seeing anybody's business, that gave me an indication that I'm good. And that's how most people can tell, you know, because most guys aren't going to have these conversations that we're having. Most guys don't talk about this shit. So they walk around.
So ladies listening, Paycheck is a married man.
Yeah.
He is not available. He is off the market. You can look at the menu, you just can't order.
Yeah, and that's the agreement the wife and I have. We're allowed to look all day long. We're allowed to window shop. You know what I mean? Ain't nothing wrong going into town and just walking down that main drag, peeking in the windows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, for a dad who has sons, have you seen your son's business?
Yeah, it skipped a generation, Paycheck. It skipped a generation. I remember when my man was, he's like 9 now, I think. And I remember when my man was like, 4 or 5, maybe. I used to call my man Tom Thumb. My man was packing when he was 3, 4 years old. And last I recall, I mean, I haven't seen it recently, but last I recall, it skipped a generation.
Well, if it's okay, and if it's not too prideful, I'd like to offer some advice for some of our below average listeners.
By all means, I'll take notes.
Well, listen, it's pretty simple, Step 1, manscape.
Right.
And you can parallel it to riding down the road and looking out the window and looking at a house. That house may be shitty, but if that yard works tight,
yeah,
you know what I mean. It's gonna make the house look better.
Yeah, and
it cleans everything up to where you get you another 1/8 of an inch or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's really about presentation.
Right. Presentation is everything.
Well, I mean, if it's presented properly, I believe that your partner is going to concentrate more on, oh my, look how nice and neat that thing is.
Yeah. Got a nice clean edge driveway and everything.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that manscaping. So I was having a discussion with my wife and some of her female friends about manscaping, and there seems to be an indecisive conclusion on, do women prefer for men to have like a little just cleaned up, with some hair down there, or completely shaved?
So what was the verdict?
Well, one of the women said that a fully shaved man reminds them too much of a little boy and it turns them off. So they prefer a little bit of hair on them.
Right.
The others were the opposite. They prefer clean shaven. However, one of the ones that said fully clean shaven mentioned that when guys and girls, this goes for females too, if they don't know how to do it properly, they break out real bad. They get all kind of damn bumps and shit, and that's not attractive. But listen, craziest thing. So my wife showed me a little secret. Now I don't go down to the skin. You know what I mean? I just clean it up, make it look presentable.
Right. Right.
On occasion, I've taken it down to the skin, and my wife gave me her deodorant. It was like Degree. It was almost like baby powder. It had the baby powder smell. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
And dude, I put that on there. No razor bumps, no discomfort, no nothing. It was crazy.
Nice.
Well, she was a dancer back in the day, so that's one of the tricks of the trade,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. I can see that. Yeah. Now, I've taken it down to the skin a couple times. One time was purely by accident. But I felt vulnerable. I felt childish a little bit.
Did you feel feminine?
No, I didn't give me a feminine feel. I just felt really vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. So I also leave, a stubble, for the most part. But, on the female side of that, I like to see one, trimmed up nice. I used to be a fan of the bald as the day she was born look, but the older I get, I like a little bit of fur down there.
Well, do you know the reason?
I was getting ready to ask you the same thing. We didn't do our pre-podcast notes. Well, what did you find out first, and we'll put them two together.
Well, I think
this being the reason for pubic hair. Yeah.
Right. I think like most mammals, wild animals, most wild animals, their predominant, what do you call it? Sense, right? You got what, 5 senses or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the sense of smell on a wild animal is greater than what it would be for us. So their hair and their fur, it gives off a pheromone. That's how that's how they track their mate or whatever. So that's actually what our pubic hair was for, was to give off a scent. It's
just a trap for the scent, because the genitalia itself was the scent.
Yes,
just a carrier of the scent.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, see, I had heard one time that, and I'm pretty sure this goes along with it, but I'm a believer in creation, not evolution. But going back to the science aspect of it, back in the caveman Neanderthal days, let's just say, they were a lot hairier than we are now, for warmth, for shade, in the sun. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm just talking about body hair in general, not just hair in the crotchal area.
Is that a medical term? Crotchal area?
No, I just made that up, actually.
Yeah, no shit.
But I heard that it was for all that, but also friction is a main player in this. So, when your bodies are vigorously moving together during intercourse, your body creates friction, and the hair touching together and bumping back and forth kind of discharges the static on the body and keeps you from, I don't know, spontaneously combusting or something. That's but yeah, so that's what I've heard. I mean, I know it was the carrier of pheromones. That was one of a 2-part thing, but I also heard that it was, for friction and warmth and shade and all that kind of stuff too.
Well, I think it's good for identifying also.
Identifying? What do you mean?
Like me and my wife and I often joke about if we were in some sort of contest where we had to, we can only see one body part, would we be able to identify? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I'd tell her, just carve my initials in that shit, and that way when I'm, during the damn competition, I'll know who's whose.
Yeah, they in the 4 or 5, whatever it was I said, of how many live in the flesh penises I've ever seen in my life, I will say that they've all 5 looked different.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
No two penises are the same.
Well, we put some stuff on social media and we got some feedback. This is what I love about doing this podcast. We're talking about stuff that a lot of guys are weirded out about it, I guess. I'm not sure why, but
it's a taboo. It's a taboo subject. This podcast is this podcast is meant to talk about and conversate about things that most normal men wouldn't stand around the water cooler and talk about at work. We touch on the taboo and the untalkaboutable. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
we have some of them. It's awkward. They don't want to talk about it. And then we have Keith Daniels. He's responded. He thinks it does matter. Junior high was when it became relevant. And he says his ruler is a liar.
Who said that?
Keith. He said he measured.
Oh yeah.
It's a damn liar.
Yeah. Lying damn inches.
Yeah, and same thing. Junior high. Junior high was, I'm assuming that would be pretty common.
turning point for most males in the world. Yeah.
And Chuck, Jason Hall commented. He mentioned a typical stereotype in Asian men.
Yes.
Is that confirmation that stereotype is true?
Jason Hall's a pretty informational fella, but I have heard throughout my life the stereotype with Asian men is that they have small penises, which there is that one freak of nature every now and then. You've seen him in the Guinness Book of World Records, the tallest man in the world, the shortest man in the world. There was a pretty tall Asian guy that played basketball. I can't remember much basketball, but he was a pretty tall fella, and I can only assume that he's packing a little flesh down there. But most Asian men are short, I think, for the most part, statistically speaking, and that is also a stereotype. So one can only think that stereotype would probably be true. I mean, I really technically haven't watched a lot of Asian porn, and when I do, they have the genitalia all pixelated out, so you really can't see anything. Anyway,
hey, I was just getting ready to say that. I'm assuming that's why they blur it out then.
Yeah. So I would say that stereotype is probably true. Yeah.
Well, Chuck Knight also commented, and he makes a good point that most people, it becomes relevant when during the infancy of puberty or somewhere in during puberty, but it varies with it varies with the individual.
Right. Well, see, that's the thing that it starts like we've all agreed here tonight today, whatever it is, that junior high is the common place for it to start changing for a guy whenever size starts to matter. But it wouldn't matter if society didn't make it matter. You know what I mean? Like it's a stigma that size matters and size doesn't matter and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, if it wasn't for society and people in general and people worrying about the size of a man's prick, that
whoa, dude,
you know what I'm saying?
Whoa, dude, that is super offensive. Prick.
Yeah, man. You must not have watched too much 70s era pornography.
Yeah, dude, that was my favorite. Debbie Does Dallas.
They called it a prick.
Yeah, I know.
They called it a cock.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, it's about growth. You know what I mean? Let's grow. Okay?
Was that pun intended?
Yeah. No, but it works.
Right. It does. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, there's a ton of names for it. I just use one of the many. I mean,
hey, real quick.
So I'm sorry if I offended you, Jackie.
No, you're not.
Thin-skinned fucker.
No, you're not. Also, Chuck mentioned that it was his dad's, one of the first ones that he saw. So yeah, that's also pretty common.
Was that it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's it.
Huh. So, what did we learn here tonight, Paycheck?
We don't know. We don't know if size matters or not because I'm pretty well endowed, so I've never,
we should have took a poll.
On what? Are you well endowed or not?
No, whether size matters or not.
Well, I can tell you this much. You know me, I'm a talker, and I don't hold back, and I don't filter nothing.
That's what we do.
I've had this conversation often with women, and they all say the same thing. No, it doesn't matter, but it's a psychological game. Why they say size doesn't matter, and it's a good thing. It's a good thing. As men, we appreciate it when a woman says size don't matter. And
yeah, it's a morale booster for sure.
well, yeah, and it's also to combat the whole what society thinks. But hey, real quick, before we end this, real quick, you want to tell them where to find us on social media?
Yeah, we got a Facebook page, Conversations with Paycheck and Red. We have an Instagram page, Paycheck and Red _podcast. We have a Twitter, Tweeter, whatever the hell you call it, at Paycheck and Red. We are on the Anchor podcast app. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Podbean. We are on Stitcher. We are on RadioPublic. Oh, probably the majority of the podcast listening formats. We have an email, paycheckandred@yahoo.com. So reach out, comment, like, subscribe, whatever the hell you call it. Let us know what you think, questions, comments, concerns, and smash that like button. And I think that will probably take care of another episode of Conversations with Paycheck and Red.